Hi friends, today we're here to talk about whether you, the viewer, would make the same decisions or choices as Wiegraf from Final Fantasy Tactics. So first things first, I may not be pronouncing his name right. I have heard it said different ways. I've heard Wiegraf, I think I've heard Wiegraf. I'm honestly not sure which is right. But in my head, since playing this game as a teenager, he's always been Wiegraf, so I'm going to have to say it that way because I know if I tried to pronounce it another way, I would just keep slipping back into saying Wiegraf, so that's what we're going with for the video. But the point today is to talk about the choices he makes in Final Fantasy Tactics, and whether you agree or disagree with them. I kind of just want this to be like a cozy, chatty, vlog type video. Just pretend I'm a friend you've known forever and we are chatting about the characters. I'll admit that the first time I ever played Tactics, I really didn't pay a whole ton of attention to, I guess, a lot of the details about the plot, so especially regarding why the Corpse Brigade was doing what they were doing, I feel like it's sort of easy to miss if you aren't paying a ton of attention. But in order to consider why Wiegraf is doing what he does in the game, we do have to think about that. So the whole situation with the Corpse Brigade is that they were part of Ivalice's army during the 50-year war, and they were, at the end of the war, when Ivalice lost, they were dismissed from service without being paid for the work they had already done. So they were basically sent out of the army with no pay, nowhere to go, no homes, no way to buy a home because they weren't paid. They were just left destitute even though they had served their country and done their best, and the nobility basically just wanted to brush them under the rug and forget about them so that it wouldn't be their problem. So that's where Wiegraf and his crew, you can see we have near him his sister Miluda, and behind them are little perler characters of Gustav and Gragoroth, who it turns out have the same sprite as each other, so they're just in different positions there to represent two different characters. So we're in this situation with Wiegraf where at the beginning of the game, where he and his friends have been dismissed from the army without being paid for the work they did. And Wiegraf ends up organizing a rebellion because they don't have any money and they're not happy about it, and who can blame them? So they begin their rebellion, and their tactics seem to basically be robbing and killing nobility, especially when they're on the road. So that's what Wiegraf has begun in response to the way he and his group were treated. So I guess that's the first point that we're looking at, is if you were in Wiegraf's shoes, would you organize a rebellion like this against your corrupt government? And I mean, me personally, and you can keep score with me here if you want, but here for the first point, if I was in Wiegraf's shoes, yes, I think I would make that decision. I'm not trying to compare this to any current governments or anything like that, like not trying to make a political statement here at all, but for here in Ivalice, in this setting, we know that their government is horribly corrupt, the nobility is terribly selfish, and they are perfectly happy to just let all the peasants starve to death. They do not care how they're doing. So if I was in Wiegraf's shoes as a peasant who had been treated this way, yeah, I would probably organize a revolution if I was able to, and he was able to. He had enough support from his friends and former army mates, so I guess I do agree with that first point there, the first decision that Wiegraf makes that we know of in the game. Then, regarding Wiegraf, the next major decision that we see him make is to condemn Gustav, who is also part of the Corpse Brigade, for kidnapping a member of the nobility. And here things get really complicated because Wiegraf, up until this point, he's been leading this rebellion that is okay with murdering and stealing from the nobility. So it's a little strange, I guess, that he suddenly turns on Gustav for kidnapping and is saying, like, you know, this is not something we do, we have our standards. So I'm really trying to understand that decision because, you know, when you've already okayed murder, it kind of seems like kidnapping would be a much lesser offense, at least in my mind. I guess I really am trying to see it from Wiegraf's point of view here. And I feel like when I first played the game, it was easier to see it from Wiegraf's point of view. Like, I kind of just blindly went along with it, like, oh yeah, kidnapping is terrible, we shouldn't be doing this, Gustav. But, you know, now, from an older perspective, when you look at it in the bigger picture of they're perfectly happy to kill the nobility, why is he so offended by the kidnap of a noble person? So, I guess one way I can see it is maybe he, in his mind, he actually sees kidnapping as worse than murder. Maybe he sees kidnapping as, like, basically a form of torture because you're holding them hostage and it's very unpleasant for them. And maybe he sees it as, like, no, we give clean deaths, we don't torture or hold hostage. Maybe that's the way Wiegraf sees it. And then I feel like it's possible it could be an ego thing, too. Like, maybe if the decision had been run by him before it was made, maybe he would have been more likely to say yes. But I feel like it could even just be Wiegraf's ego getting in the way. He's like, Gustav, you made this decision without me, and I'm in charge. That's not okay. So maybe he didn't want to quite admit to Gustav that it was an ego thing and that he couldn't handle Gustav's insubordination, but he completely condemns Gustav for the decision to kidnap one of the nobles and murders him for it. So, and then, you know, we see also a little bit later on when, after they raid the Beowulfmance, and they attempt to kill Dysadarg, but the attempt fails, and on his way out, Grageroth and the team kidnap Tetra, Delita's sister, and, you know, take another hostage. And they tell Wiegraf that they had to do it because the only way they could escape cleanly was to have a hostage with them. Whether that's true or not is open to debate. But Wiegraf is still against this. He's like, okay, so you used the hostage to get out, now you're out, so release her. And, you know, again, Grageroth and the team are like, she's our only bargaining chip at this point. Do you want us to die? Because without her, what do we have going for us? Like, our group is so weakened at this point that if we let go of our hostage, then we're going to die. Like, we'll have nothing left to defend ourselves with. And, you know, Wiegraf is still really staunchly anti-hostage here. He's like, let her go. If you die, you die. Which, you know, obviously, Grageroth is not super thrilled to hear, and I mean, can you blame him? But Wiegraf insists, you know, let the hostage go, this isn't something that we do. So this is the second point that I guess we would have to address with the decisions that Wiegraf makes. That hard line of, you know what, we will thieve and we will murder, but we will not take hostages out of the nobility, even though they're our enemy. And I guess I'd have to say I don't agree with that decision if I was in Wiegraf's shoes making these choices. I mean, I guess I just don't see how taking a hostage is any worse than just straight up murdering the nobility. So, I mean, I feel like if I was in his shoes and taking a hostage was going to help strengthen my revolution, then I would be okay with it and supportive of that. So in this case, I do not agree with Wiegraf's choice. After this, we don't see a whole lot of Wiegraf because the focus kind of shifts to his sister Maluda and to Grageroth at the fort. But eventually we catch back up with Wiegraf after Chapter 1 when he's lost everything. He's lost his sister, he's lost the whole corpse brigade. Everyone seems to have been killed by the Order of the Northern Sky, except for Wiegraf himself, which I feel like that is something I've always wondered, is how did Wiegraf get away from those last fights? If every single person under him was killed, how did Wiegraf escape? I mean, I don't know if the writers even meant for us to think about that. Like, it may just be, you know, well, we want Wiegraf alive, so he survived, don't question it. But, I mean, I am questioning it a little bit. It kind of makes me wonder, like, did he run away while everyone else was dying in his place? Or was he just extremely lucky and somehow he was the only survivor? But either way, he survives. We don't really know how, but he's all alone now. Like, he does not have his corpse brigade, he does not have his sister, he's just all by himself. And he still wants revenge on Ramza for killing his sister, and on all of the nobility for just what they've done to the world at this point. So we see Wiegraf sort of praying over his sister's sword, and he's grieving, and that's when a member of the Templars approaches him, which is like it's like the warrior arm of their church, the Templar group. So Lawfrey from the Templars approaches Wiegraf and asks him if he wants to join them and become one of them in order to get his revenge on the nobility and to, you know, sort of uproot them and be able to remake Ivalice in what they hope is a better way. And, you know, Lawfrey tells Wiegraf, I think our goals are the same, I think you should join us, we've seen what you're able to do, you know, we want you to be part of our team. And Wiegraf, when he hears all of this, and I imagine he sees it as like, wow, it's the second chance I never imagined I could have, he goes ahead and says yes. So with this decision, yeah, I agree with that one. If I was in his shoes and just at this point really pretty hopeless, and a group that actually had some power was offering to join forces with me and help me achieve my goals, I mean, I'd probably say yes, because what do you really have to lose at that? Of course, once we see Wiegraf as part of the Templars, we have a moment in the game that is just sort of mind-boggling. Like, Wiegraf, what has become of you? He tells the other young Templar, Isilud, to kidnap Alma when the opportunity to kidnap Alma arises. And, I mean, coming from anyone else, okay, sure, that might make tactical sense. But coming from, you know, Mr. I don't kidnap Wiegraf, it's just kind of like, whoa, dude, what happened to you? Like, this was something you were so staunchly against in Chapter 1 that you were literally willing to kill your own comrades to prevent kidnapping and hostage-taking. It was majorly important to you. And now you're just casually yelling to people, hey, go ahead and kidnap that person. Like, yeah, it might be helpful to us, do it. It just... oh, God. I mean, I guess it's kind of a sign of how much Wiegraf's standards have dropped since the beginning of everything. He's extremely disillusioned. I mean, I guess one way you could look at it is that he's become more prudent or less idealistic. I guess he's had a lot of time to look back at his failed revolution and think about what he could have done differently and the mistakes that he made to cause everyone to die in Chapter 1. So, I mean, maybe Wiegraf's just had an epiphany that he was wrong and they should have taken hostages and he should have let Gustav and Grageroth do what they were doing. So maybe that's it, and that's why he's suddenly okay with taking hostages. I mean, I guess being in his shoes, I would agree with this decision here, because, I mean, me personally, I agreed that hostages should be taken in Chapter 1. So, I guess that's not really changed for me. I still think that it's a smart tactical decision in their situation, so I agree with his decision. I just find it weird that he's making it because of who he was up until this point. What do you think? Now, the very last decision that we see Wiegraf make as his own person is to bargain with the Zodiac Stone, the Orosite Ares. So Wiegraf's been really, really badly injured in battle. He looks like he's dying, like he's down on his belly on the ground, covered in blood, and, you know, that probably means this is the end for Wiegraf, but he has that Zodiac Stone on him, and it starts to speak to him, and it's telling him, you know, bargain with me, and I'll give you power, and you'll be alright. So, this... gosh. I mean, I guess it's hard to say what anyone would do when they're, you know, on death's door. But I guess me personally, I don't think I would take the bargain. I don't know. Maybe that's because, like, for me, God, I didn't mean to get, like, all deep about things, but I don't think it's so much death that scares me as it is pain. I don't want to be in pain. But at this point, the pain has already happened. Wiegraf is brutally injured, and he's dying. He's about to die. So I think for me, I would kind of rather just go ahead and slip into death than make a bargain with some creature where I have no idea what it is and what it's going to expect of me. That I think I would just, at that point, I would kind of see death as a relief from the pain, and I'd be willing to accept it. Which kind of leads into, I think, part of why Wiegraf does agree to bargain with the Orosite. He claims it's because he has so much left to do. But I don't know. I mean, this is completely just a headcanon of mine, and, you know, there's not, like, any proof of this in the game. But for me, my theory on it is that Wiegraf is, like, seriously hardcore afraid to die. Like, I think he has a very strong fear of death. You know, when we see that in Chapter 1, all of his corpse brigade died, but somehow he got away, like, to me that kind of says he ran away because he was afraid when he saw that staying meant death. And the fact that he is willing to bargain with this unknown entity when he's at the end of his life, to me it just says, like, okay, he's afraid to die. I think that's really what it boils down to. And he's trying to give himself other excuses like, oh, I have so much left that I need to do. But really what it comes down to is just that extreme fear of death that he doesn't want to even admit to himself. So that's just my little theory, but like I said, it doesn't have to be true. There's any number of theories on what's going on in Wiegraf's head at this point, and if you have any others, I'd be interested to hear them. But overall, for me, on the scoreboard here, I would not make the decision that Wiegraf made here. I would not bargain with the Orosite. I think I would rather just go ahead and finish dying at that point. So, I guess overall, I wouldn't make most of the decisions that Wiegraf made, even though there are some that I think were good decisions. I feel like he's such a sad character because his intentions were so good. He really wanted to make a better life for all of his friends and all of the peasants who have just been stepped on by the nobility for so long. And he had all these high hopes, but, you know, in the beginning he was probably a little too idealistic, and it hurt his cause way too much, so that, you know, I feel like they could have succeeded if he'd just been willing to play a little dirtier in the beginning. So it's really sad because Wiegraf's almost like a case of, you know, that old saying, like, what is it, like, the path to hell is paved with good intentions? Like, Wiegraf is such an example of that. He always at least thought he had good intentions, and he was trying to help other people, but things just get worse and worse for him, to the point where at the end he's bargaining with a demon and agrees to be joined to it, which is very sad, I think. So I don't know if I've made it clear in this video, but I really like his character. Like, I think I don't know, I just think Wiegraf's really cool. Like, it's sad to me that was, you know, his end in the game, that it had to go that way. But I guess to get back on topic, what would you choose if you were in his situation with the Orosite? And do you agree with that last decision of his? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and let me know your thoughts in the comments. And subscribe to this channel if you feel like it and if you haven't already. I'll be making more videos like this on all of the characters, really. And I still plan to eventually do Ramza and Delita from future chapters, but I'm kind of going to skip around just based on whatever character do I feel like talking about that day. So there'll be a lot more videos like this if you're interested. Thanks for watching. Bye!